Hey everybody, David R. Becker here with BeckerArt, and today's paint along is going to be a copy of Charles Vickery. Charles Vickery was an artist in Chicago, and I had, before he passed away many years ago, I had watched one of his workshops or one of his demonstrations, and he had done the whole demonstration without any photographs. And I just started painting, and he was kind of one of those artists that could paint like what he really loved from his imagination. And so that's what this is all about in this week's newsletter. And even today in my classes, I've been talking to all my students about that, and that you want to get good enough so that you can actually do the paintings that you would love, and the things that you want to paint from your imagination. So you can, you love it so much, you know everything about it. He knew about oceans and the big ships he used to paint on them, and he could do it from his imagination. He didn't need any reference because he did it so many times. And so we're gonna I've been trying to learn how to do waves and breaking of waves and stuff, and so we're gonna try that today by just copying one of his photos. He doesn't have a book out, so there's no instructions on how to do his stuff, but I don't think you actually always need that. You just look at the paintings, and as an artist, you can kind of tell what you want to learn from just looking at the photo and looking at the composition the artist put together. And so we're gonna have fun and try to just copy an oil painting in our watercolor. Now, we don't have to make it look like the oil, and that's not about what we want to do. We want to see how he constructed like the lights and darks and the lights in there, and so that's what we're gonna do today. And so with that, I'm gonna toast you guys with a Dunkin' spiked iced tea. It's not a beer, but Dunkin' Donuts now does spiked iced tea, half and half. So we're gonna see what that's like. And so I did, I got a glass with ice in it because it's not a beer, and so it's an iced tea, but a spiked iced tea from Dunkin' Donuts. So cheers everybody, cheers. I'll give it a 1 to 11 rating. What happened to my camera? It's also now blue. Okay, that's a good summer drink. And I had the air conditioning on in here finally, and so it's okay. Oh my gosh, my camera does everything blue. Okay, let's go to our website. I'm gonna give that a 10. That's a really good drink. A good summer drink. Dunkin' spiked iced tea, half and half. So very good. Definitely a summer drink. And now my camera's back. Okay, so whatever. Let's go to our website. And so here's what we're going to be doing. Here is where you find everything. And there's the painting we're going to be painting right there. And then as you go down here, you can sign up for everything. And look what I did on last Sunday, because I do a Sunday demo, where my workshops are, what my classes are during the week, and then we get our newsletter that you can sign up for. If you're new here, sign up for my newsletter so you can tell what we're painting on Thursdays and all that kind of stuff. All right, so let's go to our supplies. My supplies are always my Holbein watercolors. I will be using a little bit of white gouache tonight, and I'm not going to use my regular gouache. I'm just going to use the white gouache in this. And then my brushes, which you can get on my website. If you ever want to buy those, they're on my website. Hey Dave, welcome. And then we have our Stonehenge aqua paper, which I'm working on. And let's see what else. Let's go to our value study and just show you what we're going to be doing. And so what we want to do is, let me get my pointer out of the way here, is look for the lights and darks. I always do that when I'm looking for my value pattern, right? I'm always making it black and white like I always do. And I look to where the value said. Now, it's very subtle, the light he has in this picture. It is very subtle down the middle. And it doesn't really show that in the value study in my notan of this, because it basically shows everything in the middle is light and the sky is light. So it's very high key. This painting is kind of high key in that way, in that aspect, because everything on the left, let me just show you, let me point it. So if you look at the painting down here, this is the painting that he had done. The only darks are this and these rocks right here. Really, that's the only dark, and then there is a little bit of dark through here. But look at the light that's coming through the clouds right down the middle here. And so all this water is it could be all in the light too. I could have shifted it to where it's more light, and then I could have just this rock and this area right here, my dark. And so that was my problem this afternoon. I didn't quite do the value pattern right. And I think I'm going to just try to get it to look like there's sunlight right here. The only white that you'll have on your paper is right down the middle here. And this will be more high key again, where this will not be this dark as I put it into this tan kind of looking thing, because I don't need it this whole area to be light like this. And so, and since we're copying the photo, I'm sorry, and since we're copying the painting of another artist, then we can kind of go by what he had done here by the values and just go for that, because we're not kind of figuring this out for the value pattern. We're kind of figuring out what he did to get this beautiful light going down the middle. So it's not like we're designing this, and it's not a photograph. And so by doing what I had done, I kind of made it a whole another thing. It made it not high key, like he has it more high key, where this is the only dark in here. And so all the water is pretty much in my light. If you squint your eye at this one right here, you'd see that it's a little bit lighter. So we're going to go by that. We're going to go with that and just copy that. And I just wanted to see what it would look like if I were looking for the big lights and dark value pattern. And so again, there's many different ways you can make it go. Like if I would have shifted it to where this was all lighter, and then basically what all that would be dark would be like basically this rock, this reflection, and this rock. Everything else would be light. And then, but so you don't see in this, you don't see the light going down the middle because everything's light. And so that's what I was going for this afternoon, and it didn't work out that great. And so, and I didn't make it this dark, and so everything didn't work out as I had planned. And so, but that's okay, because you always learn from from doing one and then doing another. And so this is all a learning process. So let's go to our tabletop, and I'll show you what we're going to be doing. So this is what I did this afternoon, and as you can see, I did kind of do it like he had done, but this was, I made this all is light, and so I don't have that light that's right down the middle. Like I look up here, look right there. I mean, if you look at that, look, see how there's a light right down the middle of the painting, like right through here. And that I did not pick up because there's all these lights over here. There's all these lights over here. So even though I wanted to do the big darks over here, I just didn't do it. And I'm not sure why. But sometimes, when you're just painting and you're copying this artist's work, I just didn't. I did have a photocopy of this, and it was really, really dark, and I didn't want to go that dark. So I went halfway in between, and it didn't quite work out, but this will do fine. So I'm going to do it on here. And now, as you can see, I penciled it in. And on this paper, what I had done is I took my pencil, my little pencil here. I took this pencil. It's one of those, and it's just a Bic, and it has the lead in there. But what I had done is I went in and I kind of decided to shade in my darks. Sometimes if you don't know what part is dark, just shade it in with a pencil. It's going to be darker with the watercolor paint. So don't feel that that's going to affect it at all. It really won't affect it, but it'll give you a good chance to see where you want to darken, like these rocks. I just sketch in a little bit of dark in there because it's going to be darker than my pencil line, so you can still put the paint over that. And then I'm going to really try to make sure that this area right here I'm just going to do a really light line that I want to keep that white, because that's where the sun is coming through. All right, so let's see if we can do a little bit better job this afternoon. And I always do, but that's what happens when you're working on something twice. It's okay to work on stuff more than once. I think it really helps sometimes to just do a little sketch beforehand. Hey guys, thanks again for coming by, guys. And so, let me just put this back. So we will start with our lights, and now you could put masking fluid, and I could do that on here too. I could put masking fluid like in the water where the light is supposed to be hitting, like right through here. See, there's parts in it that's total white, and I wouldn't mind having that white of the paper. Now he does that with thick white of oil paints, and that's the thing about oil painting, that you use the white and you do your darks first. You put the white on top of that, and it becomes very, very thick, and that's how come you can get that white there. But what I have to do is make sure that stays white of the paper, and then the parts around here and this side need to be not white. Even if it's light, the wash right here of the wave coming over will be just slightly darker than white, but it is not white, and this area over here is not white. And so I keep this all in the light, but somewhat dark, because it is the dark part of the water. And so let's just go with our sky, and let's wet that. And cheers again. Cheers, guys. Dunkin' half and half. Dunkin' spiked half and half. It's amazing how all these companies are all, you know, making drinks. So I'm wetting the surface. Oh, I got my overhead lights in. Let me just change those out. Sorry. Sorry about that. That's my overhead lights. And they always reflect them if I wet the area back here. All right, so let's go in there now and throw some grays. And you notice I put some new paints in because I was running out. I'm gonna start out with lavender. And let's take some black, dull that down. And he used a lot of grays in there, but light blue, maybe put a little bit of ultramarine in there. And to tone down ultramarine, I'll use a little bit of red, maybe a little bit of red orange, because that'll dull down orange, and this orange and red will dull down the blue purple. And so I'm just going to go in here. Oh, that's supposed to be light. Oh, shoot. Paper towel, where's my paper towel? I don't have paper towel. I'll use my blanket here, my towel. I gotta remember to keep that light and white. I don't want to mess around with that. So I'm just gonna go in here. And it also has some blue in the upper left corner with a little bit lighter blue. Up in this corner is a little bit of blue, and these other parts are shadowed. And it's overcast. It's like kind of overcast and a little bit of blue light sky shining through there, keeping that part really, really light. And remember, it's going to dry up 20% lighter, so don't be afraid of putting more pigment in to keep it down in value. A little bit of orange and purple, that'll give me a kind of a gray, warmish gray. If I want a coolish gray, I'll put a little bit of blue in there. And it looks like it goes right to this area, make it a little bit thicker, so it'll just, and this is all wet in the wet. Remember, I just re-wet it, I wet it. So, and I can go right into the hill back here. Let me wet this splash here too, because that's really soft edge. So let me just wet this too. I wasn't going to do that at first, but I want to wet that. Hey guys, ask questions. You remember, you can ask questions. Even if they don't have something related to the thing right now, that's fine too. Anything you want to ask. So keeping this light. And it's all soft edge, so I do want to keep it wet. I'm going to take my mister on it real quickly. Just real light with the mister. That's the mister. I'm just going to go over that because the middle is starting to dry a little bit. Talking too much here. Take a little bit of black, dull that down, maybe a little bit of, let's make it the cool. A little bit of orange to dull down the bluish purple. And I'm going right around this. This is supposed to be the sun shining through there. So, and over here, if you look really lightly into the corner here, it is the like above the clouds, and that would be like the blue part. And there's a little bit of this going through. This lavender is really a magical color. I swear to God, it just really works out with everything. It really works good with blue, with purple, violet. It grays down really well. Everything about it is amazing. I know a lot of artists are using the Holbein lavender because I don't think there's any other company that has this color that's that beautiful, that works this well. Let's go right into this area. This is all going to be turning about 20% lighter. I got to keep that my whitest white, and everything else I got to keep darker than that. Put enough pigment in there so you can actually let there be edges to it also. You can also make a gray by just using a gray. Like I have this gray right here. This is gray on gray. I can put the gray on gray right into that, which has some white in it, and that's fine. I'm going to make this darker because this right here, again, that has to be the white. Everything else can be darker. And since it is watercolor, not oils, he can get that soft white by blending. I let the watercolor blend itself. You know, it's about what, when it comes to watercolor, you let the pigment blend itself. You don't have to do any blending when it comes to watercolor. I'll do a little bit bluer right here in the upper corner here. That's going to be a little bit bluer, like it's the blue sky. You can see through there. It's just peeking through a little bit. And I know it looks really dark right now, right? It looks a little bit darker than the picture, but that's okay because it's going to dry lighter. It is going to dry lighter, 20%, by the way. We all know that, and that's the hardest thing for us to understand and keep in our mind, that it is going to dry lighter. All right, and so, I mean, if you're comparing that picture right now to what's above here, yes, it looks really dark, right? Because there's no other darks in here, and I'm going to get darker later with that area. And again, that's going to dry lighter. And so let's take those, that's my sky, and that's my light. And so we're going to take some light through here now. Let's go right down through the wave right here. Let's go through this splashing wave and the breaking against the rock. And so let's just get this all together right now. And it's a big light area, right? The waves that are coming down. So it's almost like a cloud because there's a lot of soft edges in here. So I'm going to do that right away. Again, I'm going to use the same colors because this is just, this is like doing a cloud basically. It's almost identical to doing the cloud because it is just water and soft edges, and it's just billowing up and splashing, and the side is really darker than the, there's only a little bit of white showing, and it's on top of the wave here. And there's really not that much white in here. It's just in the very top. And I will try to get some of it now, but some of them I'm just going to get later with the white paint. I will use the white paint on this and get that kind of looking really neat. Again, thicker, the more it's going to stay where it's supposed to be right here. Like I can just take a little bit darker, thicker. A little lavender. And again, it looks like I'm doing darks, right? It's not. This is my lights. I am working on my large lights. I just don't have the darks in there yet, and so you don't need to put them in now. I'm going to put them in later. And so I always work it lighter. Like if you were doing this in oils, like he would have done the darks first. And then you put the lights on top of it because you're working the light pigment on top. That's a little bit more brighter blue, so I'm going to take a little bit of the horizon blue. Horizon blue is a little bit warmer and a little bit brighter blue. And see, I'm trying to get the look of like little parts darker, some parts lighter, and it goes around and it splashes. And again, I know it looks like it's a dark because it is. Right now it's the darkest dark in the picture, but it actually is my light. It's my light area. And then right up here is the only white that I have going on. So I'm going to make this a little bit darker. And see how I penciled that in for a dark, so I know that that's going to be darker later, so I can just go right over that. I'm going to take my darks and go start there. And I have to also put in my little mountain back there. But I'm going to wait until it dries so that I can make a hard edge over there. So there, that's also spatter in there a little bit. Let's put a little bit thicker paint on my brush, and let's get it a little bit thicker, and tap down so it has a little bit of texture. I'm just going to take it and just give a little texture to it. Again, there's parts that are a little bit darker in this little section right here, but there's no white inside this splash right here. Just a little bit right there, and I kind of left that a little bit. And I can also put that in if I didn't misplace all that and went over it with white, then I can get that back later with white paint. Or like I said in the beginning, if you want to put down masking fluid to save those really whites, not the middle tone whites or the light whites, I mean the darker lights down here, those you want to just get those while you're painting. Don't put masking fluid on there because that'll give you a hard edge. You don't want hard edges there. I do like texture here. I want texture in there. And now, so that's my light. Then there's a little bit of light blue through here. I'm just going to take a little bit of light blue, maybe this little light blue. Come down through here, and again, leave some of the white, that's the paper, for the little shininess that comes through. The rest you can just put dark there, or light there, but it's going to be darker anyway, so I'm just keeping my light white. Now this area is all sand and kind of a dark there, so let's just put the sand color in there now. Kind of a middle tone. And I'm going to take a little bit of this brilliant orange, and brilliant orange with the blue kind of makes a dirty sand color. So kind of a brown. It's making a brown with the lavender, and I'm going to tone it down a real lot, and again a little lavender. Just going to go in here and get some of that, some of the color that's like sand. And you can put that into here too. Let's put it in here a little bit. That's going to show through the water, and it's going to be behind the water. Don't worry about the rocks, those are going to be darker. This can go all the way through. Maybe a little bit more potent. It looks a lot of granulation occurring in the clouds. Which pigment is causing that? Actually, it's not the granulation. It's I'm not using Stonehenge. I'm using a panel right now, and the paper is doing this. So it's not the paint, it's the paper that's granulating, unfortunately. It's a panel that, like right here, see all that granulation? That's the paper doing some weird stuff to it. So again, I'm not sure if I rubbed it the wrong way. If it's old paper, it's an old panel maybe, because you see these little dots in there? That's from the paper, it's not granulation actually. It's crescent board. It's the crescent board is what I'm using today. I just came into the studio and I had one piece sitting there, and so I thought I used that, but I realize now that it's must have been an old sheet of paper. Old board, I mean, it's an old board. I've been trying to work all boards now lately, only because I do want to just frame them and mat them, and just, not mat them, I just want to wax them and put them in a frame. And this is 11 by 14. 11 by 14 11 by 14 panel. All right, and yeah, I know that was it the one day I'm not sure if I was telling you guys, but Holbein has a new pigmented granular colors, and they're pretty neat, and they do this type of thing. But that's not what this is, unfortunately. But you just go with it. I just have to go with it now. And, you know, I saw that when I first put the sky in. All that granulation, that looks like granulation, is not. It's just the paper pelling. It's like it has measles. It has like little measles on there. Let's get some dirty color over here. If you ever want to, if you're ever in LaGrange, go to the LaGrange Art League, and you can find a bunch of this artist's original work in their gallery, actually in their school. In the LaGrange Art League, they have Charles Vickery. That's who we're copying, Charles Vickery. They have a bunch of his oil paintings in the stairwell going up to their classrooms, and it's really beautiful paintings. They're just amazing. Absolutely amazing, the water. Now we're going to get a little bit of green in here. I'm going to take a blue and make a little bit of turquoise blue in here. Take a little turquoise and kind of bring that in here. And I'm basically, that's my lights area, and let's put down here too a little bit, and again a little bit of orange. These are my lights and my middle tones, kind of. You know, you don't always have to be exact with if you're doing a lights or darks or medium. I mean, lights or mediums. As long as you get close, you can just kind of go in there, and I'm just going to put a little bit of medium in there. Because remember I said that that's all kind of a middle tone. It's darker middle tone up there, and but it's not like I had the no tan, not like I had the value pattern, because the value pattern was all dark, and that's not what I'm going to do. I'm going to keep it more high key in the fact that this area is going to be light, and the only darks are going to be this and this area right there, like an L shape. This will be a middle tone, and I'll stick a middle tone. Get some blue in this area. Now let's go get our, it's not dry up there yet, so I can't get my little mountains back there, but I think I can get this right here. My horizon line has to be nice and straight, and it's a little bit wet, but that's fine. And I'm going to go over the top of this wave, and see how it's bleeding into there, but that's okay. we're going to deal with it. That's fine. What I'll do is, for the mountains, it is still wet. What I'll do is I'll get thicker paint, because then it won't run as far, right? And so I take thick paint, rub off my brush with water, use the other side, and then just pick up pure paint. Like pick up pure paint, a little bit of violet back there. And then since the sun is right back, this is going to be really supposed to be lighter. I'm just going to go in here, get this little bit of mountain here. Hill, mountain. Again, wipe off on the one side, wipe off the water and just use paint. Because there's already water down. If I use a little bit of paint, it's not going to run. Then it'll just stick right there. See, the thicker the paint, the less it's going to run when the edge is wet. And I can wet this edge to make that a soft edge too. It's all about knowing how much pigment and water you have in your brush. So if I get rid of the water but leave the pigment on the one side of the paintbrush, I can then control the paint and see how far it's going to go with the amount of paint I have on the amount of water I have on the paper. So this is going to go in there with just pure paint because there's already water there. And see, I can control the edge even though this is still a wet edge, but there's so much paint that it's just floating into there and stopping. So it's all about how much pigment you're using and how much water is on the paper. I'm going to go right into the water here. And that can be softened later, or I can do it in a second. I just want to go back here now, and there's a little bit of dark. And I actually drew with my pencil where those darks are going to be, right? And so I know where I'm going to have to put this dark, right over that. And that's a little bit too dark, and so I'll take off a little bit. I'll just pull out a little bit with my brush. And this right here is where the sun is, and so I'm going to leave that nice and white. I'm going to keep that all back there nice and white and dappled, like it's stippled back there. And then there's this dark right here underneath the wave. Keep that white. That's so important that I keep that white right down the middle there. And see how the sky now doesn't look as light or as dark as it did before? Now it actually, doesn't it kind of look like what is above it? See, I told you it's going to get lighter. And the darker we go with this stuff, and see that's bleeding, and that's because it was wet, but nothing I can do about that because I didn't use enough paint. I could make the thing a little bit higher, just make it a little bit higher and get rid of that a little bit. And this is a little wave right there, and this is a dark. Again, just I got the dark from my palette, which I already mixed. And this is kind of like, I know it seems like it's detailed. Yes, it is kind of detailed, but it's still a big area. And it's just that I have to go around certain things here just to make it look like what it is. Like these are waves. And this is a wave coming over the side here. And then we're going to do a bunch of little bit. I'm going to take my brush, go back and forth like this. And I'm going to make sure that there's no white over here now. It can't be white over there because I got to keep the white right down the center. Even this wave right here, I'm going to have to darken that later on because it's not white. It's just a light blue. And so I'm just going to do that right now. Just make that light blue. And underneath is darker. Keep your white right down the middle. You have to keep that white so that it shows that that's the only sunlight's hitting right down the center. And it's the only part that has reflecting that light. And that's what's going to give you the good lighting effect. The good, I mean, he's a master at that. Look at that light going down the middle. It just looks so real. And I can get dark details later too if I need to get a little bit darker, or even lighter again if I want to get to the white lines. I'll put light blue on my brush and make it opaque, and then just go back in here and get all the waves and all that stuff in there. I don't have to get all the little waves now. I can just get that later. Again, get rid of the white though. Get rid of the white. We do not want white over here. There's nothing over here that's white. It's not white. The only white is right down the center. White of the paper. I thought it was old or sizing of paper. I didn't want to comment, but this will go away with the darks. Yeah, when it dries, it will also go away. The texture of the paper, when it's old paper, it'll go away with the texture. Let's go. Let's see. Get some light going through here. Again, I can look where I shadowed it. I can see where I shadowed it with a pencil. So that's really neat that you do that, so you can really tell when you're doing little details like that. Over here, we're going to come down. And so now this is all, I mean, look at that texture in there. Unbelievable. This paper is not very good. I wonder if it's like old paper that I just purchased too, because maybe they don't sell it right away. And I know that people didn't even know about this kind of paper, and so it could be like old paper sitting in their file for a long time, or in their warehouse, and then I'm the one that buys it. I ran out of my Stonehenge panel aluminum because they're kind of expensive, and so I'm kind of not doing a lot on them right at the moment, but they are great. Just a little bit expensive for me to work every painting on. I'm going to go in here, get some darker parts in there. See, I'm keeping things dark and light. You know, I'm just doing big areas still. Still want to do big areas and trying to keep my light right down the middle here. Right down the middle. And this is just a little bit right here. It's not white, it's a light blue. This is underneath the wave, and then the wave comes down here. And then this has a bunch of like this kind of thing. What I like to do is do like this. I rock my brush. I rock it back and forth like this. And I do that to make it look like the waves, you know. Because waves are like, they rock back and forth, right? And so this part is the part that looks lighter. And then there's a part of the wave that looks darker. So I just rock my brush back and forth like this. And then there's also some worm in there. So I'm going to get a little bit of orange, put it in my blue. Because the water's blue, and then underneath is the sand. Go right over your rocks. That's going to be darker. And as I'm coming forward, I want a little bit more of that warmth in the sand and the water, because this is sand and water mixed together. And I don't have any of my darks yet, and there shouldn't be yet. It shouldn't be darks yet. A little bit darker. A little bit thicker. Again, anytime I want my paint thicker, I wipe my brush on one side and I use the other side because I want to get rid of the water and use pure pigment. Because if there's water already on your paper, you can use pure pigment, but I gotta get rid of water. You have to pick it up. You need some water to pick it up. But then I take the one side and I use the other side with the pigment by itself, with no water. This is really dark right here, and kind of doing all kinds of different things over there. And then again with the blue and the orange. This is a little bit browner. And I should really be waiting for that. I shouldn't do this yet. I should. Oh, that's a big area of that middle tone, so let's just do it. Let's go in there. It's the middle tone. And if you want texture, you can always spatter a little bit like this. But it seems like I'm getting the texture anyways from the paper, so I almost don't need that. All right, Mary Beth, have a good time. It'll be up here like it always is. I will have a great next week. Tomorrow I'm going to Evanston to find out what we're doing for the plein air event. And so I'm all next week and starts tomorrow for orientation. And so I'll be in Evanston to figure out what this plein air event will be all about. So see how I got that? And we got little reflections in here. Wow, look at that paper and the granular part of it. Man, oh man. That's really, the paper's like falling apart. All right, let's get our darks. That's my mediums. That's my large mediums. I don't see too much else of the medium. Let's get a little bit more blue through here. I'm going to kind of go through here. Get a little bit of this, because again, right down the middle here, I want to keep that light. Keep parts light, but there is some darks in there too. But try to keep the white of the paper more than white paint, because nothing beats the white of the paper. That is going to be the brightest is the paper. The white cannot match that unless you put it on really thick, and I guess it could match it a little bit, but I just want to keep some of the white of the paper if at all possible, try to keep some of that. All right, let's go into our large darks now. And also like this up here, that I can wipe out a little bit maybe. No, I can't. So let's go right into our big rock, our big darks now. The residue, hey, wonder if some of the residue is coming from your towel. I don't know, I don't think so. Yeah, just look at that. Look at the dots there in there. It's whatever. And you know, we pay extra for granulated paints, and so maybe the paper is good for that. It makes it look like it's granulated. But look at how now this white right there really shines, and it really looks like the sun is poking through there, and you get a little bit of white right there. And see, that's what I missed in the class this afternoon. And you know, again, it's always best the second time because you realize what you had done that you didn't do the first time. So I'm going to go in here. I'm going to get this a little bit of this. This is actually too much detail right now. I'm not sure why I did that. Oops. It's like coming over there a little bit. Take this, put a little bit in there. Okay, let's get this rock. Let's get this rock here. Nice dark, and so let's get a nice purple, nice orange, makes a nice brown, and maybe some Prussian blue in there. Makes it really dark. Makes it kind of purpley because it's blue and blue, purple, and what do I have in there? Red. So I'm just going to put a dark in here first. Just go through really dark. And then I'm going to get over here. I'm going to put a little water there so then it gets... I mean, it looks almost black, right? But it won't be. It's just a bunch of different colors. I'll put some blue, ultramarine blue in that. And I make my browns with orange and purples and lavenders. It makes a nice brown. I used to always have browns in my palette when I was in school, but then I started just mixing all my browns. It's very easy to mix browns. Purples and oranges and reds and anything that's complement kind of gives you a gray or a brown. And also I use black. Let's say put a little black in there. That's okay too. Putting a little dark in there, and then you can put a little red in there, make it warm. Once the water is there, just float out whatever you want in there, and you can use it thick too. Let's say I want to use a little bit of this lilac and lavender. This is lilac. Watch this. This has some white in it, and I'm just gonna put it on top of the water, and it'll bleed out like an opaque color, but it gives me some really neat, like a really neat look of like these little fingers that come out, because it's light, it's white, and it just spreads. It spreads out with a little bit of opaqueness to it. And I like that look. I couldn't enter that into the TWSA, but it's a neat look. I like that look. I'm softening that edge, so some of this is like soft, so I'm just going to wet it, soften the edge. And like I said, most watercolor softens itself, so but you can help it along. You can help it along a little bit by adding water. Adding water helps your paint look soft-edged. And here, this whole area is like light blue, and so I'm going to take a little bit of the light blue and put it right into the water and just let it float. Lavender, a little light blue. And again, this is a very opaque color, but I'm using it into water, so it doesn't look opaque. It doesn't look opaque because it isn't. It's transparent because I only used a lot of water with a little bit of that opaque color. And so look at how soft that is. You know, it's all wet in the wet, and I can add the light blue, which has white in it, but when you put it in here into the water, it just blends and makes it look very, very transparent. It almost makes it look cloudy, you know, like this, like water. So that's cool. It's a good thing. It's all about getting a certain look, and if that's the way to get the look of what you want, then do whatever you can. Do whatever you have to make it look like what you want it to look like. And that's just studying and doing a lot of the work. Just keep on figuring it out. Paint, 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 and then you'll figure out how the things work. And that's what, you know, when you take a class, that's what you get from the teachers, is you get from me that how to do this, and then you try it, and hopefully it's a lot faster. Instead of learning it from yourself, you can just I can tell you, put it into wet in a wet, and then you'll get a nice soft edge. You don't have to figure that out by accident, by doing a lot of painting. So you really advance a lot faster when you do take classes or watch me on Thursday nights. Oh man, there's some questions here. Hey, wonder if some of the... thanks, Marcia. Yeah, the values are coming together, and I think the soft edges are coming together. And this is not no details yet. The hard edges is a detail, but this is all, you know, soft edged. And I can get the top, and I can actually, like I said, I'm kind of liking putting in gouache now to certain things, and that's where I would get then. I would get the look of oils in my watercolors, or gouache, I should say. And I can even use my watercolor like gouache, where I can put some white into it and make it thick. But you shouldn't make it as thick as like you do when you're using gouache, like watercolor gouache, because it's made for that. It's actually literally made to be used thick. It's more concentrated, and it's very, very finely ground, like I've been telling you guys. It's very finely ground. Now let's do the reflection of this rock that I just did. Now I can use the same colors, go down here and show the reflections in the pavement here, or in the, well, how much time do I have? Ooh, I'm gonna hurry up. Talking a lot today. So let's go a little bit, let's see, through here. And so, a little bit of blue that comes through here. There's a nice blue, darks going through here, warm pattern, cool pattern, and it's just reflected, and then there's layers of water that are creeping in and going out, right? And so to show those, you kind of do the side of it. Like I'll do the side, and right underneath the side, kind of goes right here, kind of goes here, and the top part then will look like you're seeing through it, right? And so then here I'm going to go a little bit darker. And I'll make this all wet in the wet, so it looks like it's in water. It's soft edged. And then this part is still wet. This part's dry right there, so you're seeing the sand itself. But here you're seeing a little bit of the water, a little layer of water, and you just see the side by putting a little line there of either dark or light. And then this is the color of the actual. I'll use a little bit of white there. I'm just going to use some white to make it stop. But this is actually the spray, right? It's reflecting in the water here, some of the spray. This gets kind of dark right here. And again, I try to leave a little bit of white for that reflection. That sun has got to go right down the middle. And then the rest here should be dark. And so let's make that really nice and dark now. I use light red, which is that terracotta, because this is pretty dark down here. And see how it's dry right now? So I'm just going to go in there with a wet brush. This is my 1/2" brush. I'm not sure why I'm using this one, but I am. Use a little bit. This is the only brown I have. I have a imidazolone brown. It's like a purple brown. I'll use a little bit of a what the heck. And I'm basically using the values that I see on the picture, and I'm not even really caring about, like, if I'm doing my own, when I do my own values. This paint has been painted already, and it looks great, so I don't have to worry so much about the lights and dark pattern because it's already made, and it looks great. And so just follow the pattern that you see on the painting, and it should work out perfectly fine because it's already been painted. If that makes sense. I think that makes sense. This is a little bit of yellow gray right there, which is like a yellow ochre. And put a little bit of that underneath here and there. Now let's get these big rocks here. Let's get them done. And again, those are really nice and dark. And I start with a darker color, and then I can always dull them down by putting a little bit of light on there or wiping them out. So I like to go with a really dark color, even on the top. I know the tops are lighter of the rocks, but I just fill it first with a really dark color. See, I go through, it's wet, and then I can manipulate that. You know, I can go through here, just make it dark, and then I'll manipulate those values that are wet in the wet now, right? And so there are parts that are a little bit lighter, and so what I would do is I'll go in there with thicker paint, And like I said, you can put light on top of dark, and I can put a little bit of blue, make it thick, not too much water. Just use pure pigment. It's wet already on the paper, right? So there's a little bit of light blue. You can make the top of it a little bit lighter. Make the side a little bit darker. Prussian blue, black. I'm going to use some black in here, and I'm fine with that. Going to edges, because each boulder right here is dark on the side, and it goes to a top part which is light. And then the next one underneath that is dark, and the top part is light. And look at how dark a color that is, and there's no color in there. That doesn't mean it has to stay that way. I can always take other colors, and now it's wet, and so I'll dip another color in there. I'll just float other colors into it. You don't need to put all the color in at once. You don't have to mix a color. Let them mix themselves. Let the color mix themselves. It's going to be wet, and so they will mix themselves together. You just have to give it the color, a little bit of pigment, and just float it down there, and they will mix themselves together beautifully because it's all wet, right? Even if I use black, it doesn't matter what color's underneath. I'm using another color on top of that, and it floats together. And I like that look. I mean, it's neat that I get dark enough, and I'm putting blue on top of that. This is going to be now reflections in here a little bit. And none of this should be white in there, so I'm going to take a little bit of this and put some of the lavender, like it's coming at some of the water. There is no white in here. There's no white. Not even over here. It's all darker parts than the white, because the white can only be right there. And that's what makes that look so neat then, is that it'll really stand out right there. So now let's get this corner done with the reflections and then move into our details. There's a couple other rocks here. There's another rock right there. These rocks are, you know, that's the part that looks so cool. Having the rocks in there and then reflections in the water. All right, then we have a couple over here. There's a rock right here. And again, I go with any color, doesn't matter. I just dark. And then I manipulate it to where I like the colors to be. You know, if I feel like, oh, that needs a little bit more, let's put a little bit more orangey color onto the top. Let's just float that in there with a little bit of orange. Take it thick, because there's water already down. See how it just, you know, it's just wet. You put any color you want in there, and you make it thick or thin. It doesn't matter. You know, people think that you can't use watercolors thick. Yes, you can. If the water's already down there, it will float away from there. So we're getting more and more detailed, Let's get a really nice dark here on the bottom parts of these rocks. And now they're wet, so you're only going to get soft edges on the inside. On the outside, you get hard edges. And there's a rock right here too, right? There's one right here. And now we got, look at this, now let's go detail. I think that's about it for our small stuff, our lights and darks, and I think it's time for our detailed darks. This whole area will be darker, so let me go with my big round brush now for a second. Because I like how this, in the picture, is kind of dark, but there is like this white lavender running all through there. So let's just do some of this dark and see if we can negative paint the little areas. The parts I'm leaving are supposed to be a little bit like what would be the lavender that you did first. And if that doesn't work, then I'm actually going to put lavender in there later. Like if I didn't get it, I will just put it in with a nice dark color, or with a nice lavender thick color. There's also a rock right here. Now let's just use some lavender, and let's make some waves. This is pretty thick. I got it pretty thick now on my brush. It's not thick as oil paints. It's not. My brush is still wet, so I'm just picking them enough so I can make a hard edge line, and it's dry, the paper now, so I'm going in here and going to get a nice dark color. Let's get a little bit of turquoise in there. And so let's do the side of this wave here. This is more detailed now, and so I'm going to get the side of this wave. I would say the biggest problem beginners have when they don't use enough paint is that's it. The problem is they don't use enough paint to put down and control that paint. You have to control it enough so that it will stop. You need hard edges, you need to be dry, and then you need to be wet enough to let them blend themselves together. So it's all about pigment ratio and how much pigment to use. And most students always are blending colors on the palette. They're trying to make a color. I don't try to make a color here. I try to make it here by just putting on the water and let it blend itself. And knowing what I need to be soft edged and hard edged. You know, I leave it dry when it needs to be hard edged. And when it's wet, it's going to be a soft edge. A little bit of lavender and purple. What does that look like? Lavender, purple. Oh, look at that beautiful color. And I'm going to make it look like it's shining through there with a light blue, like the sun's shining through that water. And put it right here with a little bit of lightness to it, like it's shining through the water. It's a little trick I noticed that a lot of these marine painters use. Like there's a little light that shines through. Now there's a lot of little dark waves back here. And now I did all my lights, all my soft edge stuff, but now I'm going to get the hard edge stuff because there is hard edges back here. You know, there's a wave right here that's hard edged. And there's a lot of waves, so I'm using the tip of my brush just to kind of go in there and get those waves looking. And now I did make this darker, so now I do get this to where it looks like it's light right down the center, right? And there's a little bit of broken up white right here, so I'm going to go in there, purple and lavender, and a little bit of blue, ultramarine blue, a little bit of this dirty palette color too. And I'm going to go in there now and kind of get the little texture that's happening in here. There's a lot of stuff going on here. Look at all this. It's a bunch of water spraying all over the place. I'm jumping down here, not sure why. Let's make this darker down here. Again, I'm not doing it in a wet surface because I want the hard edges now. I want some hard edges. I want to show the texture of the water, the waves. And so I don't need to have it soft anymore. Now I'm going in for the hard edge stuff. And the reflections and the waves. And where am I getting that look? I'm looking at the picture and just copying what the picture is. This artist did it already for me, so I'm just going to copy what I see, which would be harder if you're doing it from a photograph because then you have to decide what's more important because everything's going to be in focus, but he already put the stuff he already did that for you. You know, that's the great thing about doing a painting from an artist because they made a design and everything. That's all done for you. That's what you have to do when you're doing your own photograph. You have to decide on how making those things work for you. Because in a photograph, a lot of times everything is in focus and you don't maybe see that this is right down the center. So he did that for you. And that's how come it's neat to sometimes take a famous artist's work and try to copy it. And you can see, because the next time I do one, I'm going to remember this. I'm going to remember what I did here. And I'll try to do it even though it may not be in the actual scene. I'm going to make it that because I saw it works on this one. So if it works here, it probably should work elsewhere too in your painting. Or I'll look for that. Alright, I think we're getting close here. And so I'm just putting little dots in. On the beach here, I'm going to spatter to get some texture. You can dot it like this too, but I'm just going to take my brush, get some dark, and just spatter. A little bit of pebbles on the beach and stuff, and you can tap it a little bit here and there. I am going to also use white paint. I am going to use white paint later, but right here is really important. That's the center of interest kind of down there. Get rid of some of this spatter. And let me really quickly, how much minute? We got 5 minutes, 6 minutes. 6 minutes, we can do it, I'm going to take a little bit of texture here. There's a little bit of texture going on through here because it's a bunch of waves going right here. And it's kind of folding in right here. It's folding into the wave, the top of the wave, bottom of the wave. Okay, last but not least, I'm going to take my small round brush. Cheers, everybody. And I'm taking pure white paint. I have 2 white paints on my palette right now. This is a primary white gouache, which is a little bit more coverage you get on there. I'm going to go in here now, get a little bit of my white coming through there. Up here, I noticed I misplaced a little bit of the top of that wave, or the thing, so I'm going pretty thick with this. I'm just going to hit the top of that. Maybe put some inside here a little bit, just a little bit. And this now is more of a technique of like an oil painter would do. They go in there with a thick amount of paint, but they do this at the end like we're doing now. They would do it at the end also, because they have all the darks down already. So I'm going to give that a little bit of light. And then there's a bunch of shininess happening back here, so I'm just going to, I like that shininess looking parts. Let's see, it kind of goes down in here a little bit, the top of this. And then I'm going to take a little bit of that and put it into like turquoise with a white, and making not a white, but just a kind of a turquoise lavender. And I'm going to make that as the parts of the water that's running down these rocks, because it hits the rock and then it kind of runs down. And I can't paint that with, you know, I can't go around that. At least you could, but I'm just going to use white paint, and then I can get it right away. Like it's like the water's hitting the rock and then it just runs down, right? And then I'm also going to make waves down here. And these light lines in here, there's a lot of times these little veins coming down. So just take white paint. I'm just going to use the white paint to make that, instead of going around it and negative painting it, which is more, you know, I mean, it's harder, and it looks kind of cool too. If you can do that, that's fine. You know, but I find either way, I like making things easy on myself, and so that's why I do it that way. And then the water kind of goes like this at an angle. It kind of goes that way. So I'm going to make a little bit of the waves go that way. And then there's a bunch of, look at these little waves, and also the front of these little waves right here, or of the, they have a little bit of white on them. The front of the water coming in and out of the thing. You guys see anything? Any other questions before we're getting pretty close here, guys? This is looking pretty decent. And then put a little bit of white on top of this, a little bit of a I know some people are very much against using white, and that's fine. You can do this. You can do this with a masking fluid, and you can keep the white by going slower. I don't usually do that because, again, I'm working pretty fast for the 1 hour. So I'm making little water droplets coming over the side, and I could keep on going and make it super, super detailed, and really go to where it looks exactly like his painting. He does have look at the little hits of white. I almost have too much white in here. There's little hits of just right in this area. That's really, looks really cool. So I'm just going to take and darken it and then lighten it up again. I mean, I love that little hits he has right in there of white. To get that, you have to not put as much white in as I did, and then just do hits of the white. Like I'm going to go over that a little bit. And what else do we have here? A little dark. I think that's it, guys. Let me see. Put a little dark through here. Reflect that rock again. That rock should be nice and dark. So I'm going to see the bottom of that rock real quick. 1 minute, 1 minute. We got 1 minute. The bottom of that rock. Give this rock texture if you want. And last but not least, I noticed that my horizon line that is not dark enough, and so I'm just going to go in there and make that a little bit darker. And again, it was higher than I was supposed to be, but there we have it. down. All right, there you have it, guys. A Charles Vickery, a Chicago artist. He used to do boats, beautiful boats. You can see him online. Just type in Charles Vickery into Google, and you'll see great, great boat scenes, great tall ships he used to do. 7:30. There we have it. Any last questions? Yeah, and if you look at his painting really close up, it's more lacy and it has more waves and stuff. But it shows me where I'm at and what I still need to do. But I'm so happy that I got this light going on in the middle there, because that's what was more important than anything. And some of this is almost a little bit too light yet, but I got it much better than this afternoon. And this also could be a little bit darker, and I may do that after I get done here. But thanks again, guys. And again, try to work on some things that you really love to paint on. You know, what do you like to paint? What is your passion of what you want to paint? And just study it. And study an artist who has maybe done also paintings of that already. You know, like we did here. I really love this kind of work, and so he was a perfect artist to see. And also that Carl Evers I talked about in my newsletter, he's also a great artist that had done that. So the only thing I see is that the last gray in the water you used is more blue, not gray. In that area, I'll be working on it afterwards. So thanks, guys. If you do it, please let me see it. Put it on my BeckerArt Facebook group and show us what you did. All right. And he has a bunch of scenes too. If you don't like this scene and you want to try something simpler, he has a bunch of beautiful, beautiful scenes of water and rocks and stuff like this. So you can do another one too if you'd like to try that. And we'd love to see it. All right. So until Sunday, probably, I'll see you later. Bye-bye.